chapter 17, we have covered 4 paragraphs, but let's read them again. So, page 17. At the time, Subhuti asked the Buddha, world-honored one is the same as Bhagava, if a virtuous man or woman is determined to develop the supreme enlightenment mind, how should his or her mind abide and how should it be subdued? That's more or less the same question as the initial question in chapter 2. So this is to repeat it again, but in the later chapters develop into more detail. The Buddha said to Subhuti, a virtuous man or woman who is determined to develop the supreme enlightenment mind should keep this in mind. The supreme enlightenment mind in the Sanskrit language is Anuttara Samya Sambuddhi. Should keep this in mind. I lead all living beings to put a stop to reincarnation and escape suffering. But when they have been so led, not one of them in fact stops or escapes suffering. That is to say, the Bodhisattva would not have the notion in his mind that sentient beings, I led them into escaping reincarnation, I led them into nirvana. They don't think that way, because if they do, that's still the egoistic feeling. You still have the 4 fallacious ego concept of ego, personality, life, and beings. So in emptiness, there's nothing to be obtained. If you still, I save a sentient being, if there's a sentient being I save, then you still have that notion of attachment. It's easy to talk about it in language. All this is easy to talk about it, but you have to train yourself in thinking of the sunyata, the emptiness. If there is one trace of attachment, you're still an attachment. You still have that attachment. All right, next paragraph. Why, if a bodhisattva clings to the notion of an ego, a personality, a being, and a life, it is not a true bodhisattva. Why, Subhuti? There is not really a dharma which can develop the supreme enlightenment mind. Now, this is very logical. If you think that there is a dharma that you have obtained, that you can save sentient beings, then you're not a true bodhisattva. That is to say, if we say that everything is subject to disintegration, to life and death, even what I said, because everything, even Buddhism is subject to arising, maintaining, and disintegrating. So there's nothing to be obtained. If there is something to be obtained, it's an attachment. Because we always obtain in this temporal world, we always think of obtaining, getting, acquisition. Remember we chant the 8 realizations? We always think that we want acquisitions. I want good health, I want to be rich, I want this, I want that, I want to be respected. You always think of all these acquisitions from the ego's point of view. And that gives rise to mental afflictions, gives rise to a lot of anxiety, fear, disappointment, jealousy, hatred, love. All these things is because of attachment. So in the chanting book, in the Heart Sutra, it says, therefore in emptiness, there is no form, nor perception, nor conception, nor volition, nor consciousness. In emptiness, there's no form. In the realm of emptiness, when you understand emptiness, how can you attach to form? How can you attach to perception, conception, volition, and consciousness? No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, or mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or object of mind, because there's nothing to be obtained. Now this is very difficult to practice when you realize the ultimate, the absolute emptiness. You're out from reincarnation. You're in nirvana, you are enlightened. So we're in the process of learning. We only know the superficial language meaning from the words, but we haven't got a direct touch of it. Because when we put down the book, the sutra, then we go about doing other things, we go back to the ego again. And we've been in this ego prison for thousands, millions of years, reincarnating with the ego. How can we just get rid of it immediately? So that's why we need to practice. Not just in meditation, in daily lives. We have to practice to let go of the ego, personality, being, and life. And of course, there's deep meaning, not just looking at the superficial meaning. We already explained that. The fourth paragraph now. Let's take a look at the fourth paragraph. Subhuti, what do you think? When the Tathagata was with the Dipankara Buddha, did he have any Dharma by means of which he attained supreme enlightenment? Supreme enlightenment is Anuttara Samya Sambuddhi. So Dipankara Buddha is an ancient Buddha. When Sakyamuni Buddha, in many, many lives before, was an ascetic practicing meditation. And I already told the story. And it's a long story. And the Dipankara Buddha prophesied that this practitioner will be Sakyamuni Buddha. So that's a prophecy. That's many, many lives ago. And because he was enlightened and he didn't have any attachment. There's nothing to be obtained. So it will be explained later in here. So Dipankara Buddha prophecy that Sakyamuni Buddha will be a Buddha. So historically we have Sakyamuni Buddha, which was born 2,600 years ago. So that was prophecy predicted by Dipankara Buddha. So when the Tathagata was with the Dipankara Buddha, so when this practitioner was with Dipankara Buddha, did he have any Dharma by which he attained supreme enlightenment? He didn't attach to any. So next paragraph. No, well-honored one, as I understand the meaning of the Buddha's teaching, when he was with Dipankara Buddha, he had no Dharma by means of which he attained supreme enlightenment. No attachment to the Dharma also. Next paragraph. The Buddha said, just so, Subhuti, just so, there was really no Dharma by means of which the Tathagata attained supreme enlightenment. No attachment whatsoever to the Dharma. Next paragraph. Subhuti, if there had been a Dharma, Dipankara Buddha would not have predicted in your next life you will be a Buddha named Sakyamuni. Next paragraph. Since there was really no Dharma by means of which the Tathagata attained supreme enlightenment, thus Dipankara foretold in your next life you will be a Buddha named Sakyamuni. For those who haven't studied Buddhism, you should know that there's not just one Buddha. There's immeasurable number of Buddhas. Buddhas are sentient beings who attain nirvana, who attain supreme enlightenment, or anuttara samya sambuddhi, is out from reincarnation. And we, being sentient beings, are still in reincarnation. We reincarnate every life. With what? Why do we have to reincarnate? Because of karma. We reincarnate because of our own karma into different forms. This life will take this form, the next life will take another form. And if you perform good deeds, you may be in the human realm again. Or if you perform even better deeds than human realm, you may be in the heaven realm. But the heaven realm is not ultimate. The beings in heaven When the time are due, they still have to die. They may exist for millions of years. It's not absolute. They still have to die. They are happier than humans. So if you have done good deeds, your good karma, you may reincarnate into the heaven realm or the human realm or the Asuras realm. But if you have done bad deeds, you may be in the three vicious realms: hell realm, victims of hell, animal realm, and ghost realm. So it's very important that when you practice Buddhism, your first foundation is you must not do bad deeds. You must not create bad karma. If you create bad karma, you're not even guaranteed that you will be in the human realm in your next life. Not to say attaining Anuttara Samya Sambuddhi. Not to say attaining supreme enlightenment. So we're talking about very high level, achieving supreme enlightenment. Just at the lower level, are we a virtuous man or woman? Now, if you kill, if you lie, if you commit sexual misconduct, if you're doing all kinds of bad deeds in your work, in your career, or your attitude and all that, you're creating a lot of bad karma. That supreme enlightenment is very far away from us, from you, if you are performing bad deeds, not even qualified to be in the human realm again. So very important that in the Buddhist teaching said there are three foundations on which we built a development of supreme enlightenment mind. What are these foundations? Morality, samadhi, which is meditation. Meditation does not mean that it's just cross-state meditation. That means you always have a clear mind, a calm mind, a mind that you're under your control. So the first is morality, and this morality is a whole school of thought. We call it the Vinaya. Many rules and precepts that one have to follow in order to guide yourself, your conduct to the right course. A whole monastic code book for the monks, for the nuns, for laymen, as what to follow, what you should do and what you should not do. For example, the 5 precepts: abstaining from killing, abstaining from sexual misconduct, abstaining from stealing, abstaining from intoxicants, and abstaining from lying. Now these are very 5 basic. If anyone who does not follow these 5, the next life you may not be human again, not even reincarnating into a human. So the Buddhist teaching is the first foundation is follow the precepts, the morality foundation. If you don't have morality, that supreme enlightenment is millions and millions of miles away from you. Not to say enlightenment, you can't even get into the human realm again. Maybe in the animal realm, the ghost realm, or the hell victims realm. So that's the first foundation. The second is, we call it samadhi. Samadhi is the mind, equanimity of the mind. The mind is the calmness of the mind. And the third, of course, is wisdom. So you have to, through these 3 pillars, these 3 columns, foundation to support that course. We call it Anuttara Samya Sambuddhi, developing the supreme enlightenment mind. If we don't have these 3 foundations, you can't even practice. So the Buddhist teaching is nothing about blind faith, about just worshipping and getting blessings. There's nothing to be obtained. If you're attached to any acquisitions, you're not at it. But there are Bodhisattvas and Buddhas who help sentient beings who are suffering, to help them to proceed in their spiritual development. And there are Bodhisattvas who help people, who help victims too. Some people call them guardian angels. Yeah. There are bodhisattvas, they're guardian angels who help because they have been humans before, and they know that we live in the human realm, we're sentient beings, and sometimes we do not have enough equanimity of the mind to practice, and sometimes we may be confronted with a lot of karma of yourself, of others, that would stop you from practice. So there are bodhisattvas who help out practitioners, like you and me. So from that perspective, if you request their help, they would help you. But you need to have there's three conditions that the help will come true. Not everybody, I'm in difficulty, then I request Bodhisattva or Buddha to help me, and the Buddha will help me. There are three conditions. What are these three conditions? The first is you have to be a virtuous man or woman. In other words, you're always stealing, lying, killing, sexual misconduct. You're not a virtuous woman. Your morality standard is not up to a point that the Bodhisattva may be helping you. So you yourself, you have to be a kind person. The second is devotion. For those who chant every day, who meditate every day, and meditate sutra and chanting, and for those who help others, voluntary work in charitable organizations and all that, they satisfy the conditions. They're always giving out. They're always chanting. They're always saying their prayers. They always practice meditation. And when they are in difficulty, they say their prayers, and they say their prayers for a few hours per day, requesting for help if they're in urgency from the Bodhisattvas. That sincerity in the devotion is a very good condition that Bodhisattva will help. And the third is faith. You still need the faith. In other words, you must not have any suspicion that your prayer would not work. Some people say, oh, I'm saying my prayers, I'm saying Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, and would it work? It may not work. What happens if it doesn't work? So you still have that doubt. So in other words, you are chanting a sutra that you doubt, that you question. It may not work. Your faith is not there. In other words, your mind in chanting is not in tune with samadhi, in tune with the mind of the Bodhisattva. You're questioning what you are chanting. You're questioning your prayer. Your mind is not in tune with the Bodhisattva's mind. The frequency does not meet. So these three, so if you're in difficulty, you earnestly request help from Bodhisattvas in your practice, in any emergency and anything like that. You don't learn at the time of the emergency. You have to chant well in advance so that you can train yourself. You train up yourself first. You don't do it right at the point of emergency. Well, if you're in emergency and you're doing it, if you have already trained yourself as far as morality, as far as attitude, as far as kindness, and all that, then at that juncture of emergency, it works. But if you do not know how to chant, you do not know how to say your prayers, you just learn it at the emergency, it becomes tough. It may work, but it becomes tough. So I always advise people, when you come here on Saturday, that's good for you, because you train up yourself. So if you have compassion, you always have compassion. And if you have devotion, devotion is also expressed in the amount of prayers and sutras and practice that you have done. Every day you're meditating for half an hour, and every day you do your chanting. You're building up the energy in you. You're building up that energy which helps you to tune in to the Bodhisattva's energy. Of course, last but not least, no doubt, no suspicion. So, sunyata means there's nothing to be obtained. Impurity you cannot obtain, so is purity. Merits you do not obtain, nor non-merits. Why is there nothing to be obtained? Tathagata means the suchness of all Dharma, the absoluteness of all Dharmas. Suchness, S-U-C-H-N-E-S-S, suchness. What is suchness? It is the absoluteness, the reality, the emptiness. In emptiness, there's nothing to be obtained. Suchness is the absoluteness, the reality of all things. And if you think that there's something to be obtained, it's not emptiness. So, to an enlightened being, suchness to an unenlightened, a being who is not enlightened, suchness is the self, the I, who have attained enlightenment. Everything is not real, but I am real. I am the absolute. But if you maintain that kind of thinking, you are not on your way to the Tathagata. By the way, what is Tathagata? Tathagata means the thus come, thus gone, thus perfect one. It means no coming, no going, no perfection, no imperfection. It is the suchness, no duality. That's Tathagata. Next paragraph. Subhuti, that enlightenment was by itself neither real nor unreal, that all dharmas are Buddha's dharma. Subhuti, this so-called dharma are not, but are expediently called all dharmas. Subhuti, suppose there is a man whose body is great. Subhuti, next paragraph. Well-honored one, the great body of which Tathagata speaks is not great, but is called a great body. Next paragraph. Subhuti, in like manner, if a bodhisattva says, I should lead uncountable living beings to put a stop to reincarnation and escape from suffering, he cannot be called a bodhisattva. Now there's just a few examples about body in here. What is this body make up of? This body is made up of the 5 skandhas, body and mind. The body, it's a form plus perception, conception, volition, and consciousness. And we think of this body as real, but this body is impermanent. But when we're maintaining this body, we always think that this body is me. But this body is impermanent. You only hold it for a number of years. That's not you. That's not me. But when is the real me? Maybe that's what we should be thinking. Enlightenment by itself is neither real or unreal. When you think of something is real, something is unreal, you're still thinking of the temporal matter. You still fall into the realm of duality, love and hatred, tall and short, rich and poor. It is emptiness, then enlightenment is neither real or unreal because it's empty. And even that emptiness its causality is not real. Now, it sounds contradictory. You really have to think about it before you understand it. Don't just take the language, the word's meaning. You have attachment, then you say everything is emptiness, then you don't even attach to emptiness, not a trace. Then even non-emptiness, you have to let go non-emptiness. It's just like when you look at a palm tree. You look at the palm tree and you think that the palm tree had a stem, a trunk. But if you start to peel, bit by bit, it's not a trunk. It's not hard. It's all water. You peel it, it's just leaf. It's just it dried it out. It's not a trunk, but it looks like a trunk. It looks like a tree, but it itself is a leaf. You have to peel it off bit by bit.